Hi, and welcome back to Fire Talks. My name is Chris Brunette. I'm Chief of Fire and Life Safety here with the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. On this episode of Fire Talks, I have several people joining me from across two of our branches. Today, we have Bryan Horgen, who is our Inspection Unit Chief for our Building Codes branch, as well as Bill Bischof, who is our branch chief for the Building Codes branch. And then on the other side of the house, we have JT McLeod, who's the branch chief of our fire prevention branch, and Bryan Kendall, who is inspection unit chief for the prevention branch. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I know we're going to be talking about schools and our school construction and inspection program specifically, and how we interact not only within our organization, but with our local jurisdictions. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. And before we jump into it, maybe I'll just have you all introduce yourself and give a little background. So Bryan Horgen, you are first up on my list. If you could jump in and just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, well, hello everybody. My name is Bryan Horgen. I pretty much grew up in the construction industry. My family owned a construction company, and I did that for a number of years and eventually owned my own construction company. And then in 2000, I went to work for a county building department as a building inspector, and then went from inspector to a plan review, and then eventually ended up being building official for the jurisdiction. And then in 2008, came over to the state as an inspector for public schools, which I did all the way to 2020, and then became the inspection unit chief for dfpc. And here we are.
And we're glad you're here. I appreciate it, Bryan. Bill, you're up next. Would you mind sharing with our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Not at all. And first of all, thank you, Chris, for having us all here together to talk about the public school construction program. I think it'll be a great benefit to everybody concerned. My name is Bill Bischof, and even though I'm a little bit older than Bryan, our backgrounds are pretty similar. My father was a carpenter. I served a 4-year carpentry apprenticeship. And then went into construction for a number of years, and then went over to inspections in 2000, and proceeded up the chain into plan review, and then took a position with the state in 2008. And Bryan and I were among the first full-time permanent inspectors hired by the state for the public school construction program. Just a little bit of background. In 2014, I took on the acting building official position. And then apparently they didn't like the way I acted. And now I am the branch chief for the building codes, and my duties are similar to a chief building official for a building department at this time, and that's my story.
You know, and it's a good story, and I'm glad you brought that up about being the chief building code official for us, because I think it's probably interesting to note for a lot of our listeners that although we are the Division of Fire Prevention and Control, we have full service building department, which is your branch, working in the division. And so it makes us pretty unique. The other thing I wanted to bring up, you reminded me, I have a similar background. My dad was a carpenter. His dad was a carpenter. I grew up on construction sites, and actually grew up going to the carpenters union meetings and picnics. And so it's interesting how all three of us have that background, and we kind of share those experiences. Of course, I did not become a carpenter. I went into the fire service, probably to the chagrin of my dad and grandpa, but still gave me that good base growing up in the construction industry. But that's not what people are here to listen to. They want to know more about our school construction and inspection program. But before we do that, I'd like our folks on the other side of the house, the fire prevention branch, to introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, JT.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris, and thank everybody for being on today, and for those out who are going to be listening. I'm really excited about this. My name's JT McLeod. I'm the fire prevention branch chief, and I started off 1994, pretty much straight out of high school. Have a wildland and structural background in fire and emergency services, and about 12 years ago, decided I wanted to kind of go down a different path and challenge myself in a different way. And so I entered into fire prevention and the fire marshal's office, and have been doing inspections and plan reviews since then. And one of the exciting opportunities that I've had is about 9 months ago, joined in with DFPC in my current position. And to kind of echo what Chief Brunette said, it's a very unique and really kind of a cool situation that the building department is located within that same section, and that we get to collaborate on things like this. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted to come and pursue a career with DFPC, is the relationship that we have both internally and externally with the local authorities, and the local, in this particular case, we'll be talking about the school districts. It's kind of near and dear to my heart. It's one of the things I concentrated on through my career. And so I'm just excited to come here and chat about it, and, spread some awareness about it. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on, and thanks for joining our group. We're excited, just like you are, for you to be part of our team, and here a year into it, we haven't scared you away yet. So I'm glad you're sticking with it and see all the benefit of what we're doing out there in our communities. So thanks for being here, JT. And Bryan, not last but not least, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone out there. Again, thank you for having me. Like JT, I started straight out of high school. Beginning of 92, I started in emergency medicine and quickly became a firefighter in 94. And since then, I've been a firefighter, becoming a paramedic, and really learning all the aspects of the firefighting service, not only fighting fires, but learning how to investigate fires after the fact. Then I started working towards the fire prevention side of it, a three-legged stool, if you will, all three aspects of it, before, during, and after the fire. In 2019, I got the job here at the state as an inspector after a long career as a firefighter. And then shortly after there, I was able to promote to a unit chief, and I get to oversee the school program now. One of the things I do love is the historical fires and how they shaped our codes. And on a side note, I do have a pretty extensive construction background too, because as a firefighter, you only work 10 days a month. You got to fill the rest of those 20 days with a job doing something else. So happy to be here. And that's my story up this far.
That's awesome, Bryan. Thank you so much for sharing. And just like the other three, I'm glad you're here as well. So, well, we've got a lot to talk about today, so we'll kind of dive into it. This public school construction and inspection program has kind of a rich history, and I think it's worthwhile to share that history and dive into that before we really dive into how it functions today within the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. So, first off, I'm just hoping that, maybe Bill, you can jump in and give us a little bit about the school construction and inspection program and how it started, why it started, as much as you can. I know that, again, it's got a long and rich history. We might not all have all the information, but I think probably you and Bryan Horgen have the best background on it because you've been in the program longest. So maybe, Bill, you could kick us off and tell us a little more about it.
Sure, Chris. Thank you for the opportunity to. It's my understanding that the program started in 1964. And that was a result of like Brian Kendall was saying earlier about the historical fires that had occurred previously. And then the state legislature decided that they needed to do something to help protect the student body within schools in Colorado. And so the program started in 1964. And it was part of the Department of Labor and Employment for a long time in the Oil and Public Safety Division. And that's where Bryan and I hired into, was the Oil and Public Safety. And like I said, in 2008, we were hired as the first permanent full-time inspectors for the program. Before that, it was basically a one-man operation. And so that person didn't really have time to do a lot of inspections. And so there were a lot of schools that he would do plan review on. And then once they got a final fire and a substantial completion from the architect, they were issued a CO. And then and like I said, in 2008, we hired on. In 2010, we were moved over to what was then the Division of Fire Safety, because school districts wanted to have one place where they could go to and get a building permit and their fire permit across the state. And of course, things have changed a little bit since then. Like, we're no longer Division of Fire Safety, we are now Division of Fire Prevention and Control, which occurred in 2012 was a name change. And Chris, or you may be able to help with that. Was that the same time that the healthcare moved in to Division of Fire Safety?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the Life Safety Code team that was moved from
Yes,
the
yes.
Department of Public Health and Environment. We were actually the last to be consolidated. So the consolidation started in 2012 with the creation of the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. And it was our team from the health department that was the last to consolidate in July of 2013. And that's what established the fire and life safety section within the division. So it took time. I think in 2012, our legislature recognized that there were these fire programs all over the state in different state agencies. And really, with the help of state chiefs, they wanted to consolidate all those services into one agency. And so that precipitated the name change and the consolidation. But really, I say 2012 is when that started, but with your team from the Department of Labor and Employment in 2010, that probably is really the start of all that consolidation. And I think appropriately so. I think getting those services in one place so we could serve the school districts the way that we do now was a good move. So yeah, Bill, it's always so interesting to hear that background and to know that this team used to be in oil and gas. I just don't understand how it ended up there, but I'm sure in those early years in the 60s, a lot of the school safety had to do with proper installation of gas piping. We did have historic fires in schools related to gas leaks. So maybe that's where the genesis of that is, but I don't know if you know, but that's just a speculation on my part.
I don't know, but I'm thinking about the rich history of the oil industry in Colorado, and that could have been part of it, that there was funding available in oil and public safety.
Yeah.
May not have been available in other places. But it was interesting because we would do building plan review and then switch right over to a fire plan review on the same set of drawings. John Weir, who's not here today, is our plan review unit chief for the building code branch. and he has an extensive background in fire and in building department. And so he would be our mentor basically on doing fire plan review and what we would be looking for on those. And both Bryan and I have done previously, we've done a number of fire maintenance inspections and or suppression inspections in public schools, because we were one team in one state division.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I guess that leads to my next question, and this is for you, Bryan Horgen. Since you were part of that consolidation and you started out with one department and then got moved to the Division of Fire Safety, and then you were also part of the transition from the Division of Fire Safety to the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. Maybe you could talk a little bit about those transitions and how they went and kind of how you felt through that process.
I mean, it was uncertain times, I guess, would probably be the best way to do it, to say it, I guess. Our job and our focus and our purpose really didn't change. So that part wasn't so bad. You know, we still did the same thing. We still did the inspections. We still issued the COs. Our process really didn't change a lot, even though we got moved 3 times. And so it wasn't too bad. I mean, we had different rules we had to follow, because now we're under Department of Public Safety, as far as hiring people and qualifications and things like that. But I really don't see our focus changed much through that process. I think we're much more efficient today than we were back then, and we got a lot more support. And so those are all good things.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for sharing. And the last thing, and Bryan Horgen or Bill, maybe one of you can answer this, is, today we serve all public schools, charter schools, institute charter schools, and local district colleges, which used to be junior colleges in the statute. And then I don't remember when, but at some point they changed the title of those to local district colleges. I guess my question is did we always serve those 4 types of entities in this program, or were the charter schools in particular added at some point that you're aware of?
I am not real sure about that. The charter schools, it's kind of where the money comes from. So the charter schools are typically funded by the local school district. And so, a student gets so much money allotted to them by state taxes. So it really depends where the money comes from. So if it's a charter school or a public school, it's exactly the same rules, same process for everything. Do you have anything to add on that, Bill? I'm not sure how to answer that very well.
I do have a little bit to add to that. It seems to me that when we started, we were doing charter schools at that time, because I remember going to a number of Montessori schools and looking at their construction projects. And Bryan brought up an interesting point that we should probably go over a little bit. It's not something that, Chris, you have asked for yet, but where our jurisdiction starts and ends. And typically what we do is anytime there is money coming from CDE for public school funding, the responsibility and the authority for permitting any construction project in that school, whether it's a Montessori school, a charter school of any kind, or a public school, or like you said, Chris, a district college. We maintain that's our jurisdiction, and we've been backed up with the Attorney General's office on a number of times that we've asked them the same question. And I'm glad that they changed the title from junior college to local district, or whatever you said it was, Chris. I don't remember exactly what it is. Because there was a lot of confusion, because there's a number of community colleges that we don't have jurisdiction over that call themselves junior colleges. And so there is always this confusion. Do we go to the Office of the State Architect, or do we go to Division of Oil and Public, or Division, excuse me, Division of Fire Prevention and Control for our permitting for those colleges?
Yeah, no, all really good points, Bill. Thank you. Well, those of you listening, you are listening to Fire Talks with the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. Today, we are talking about the Colorado Public School Construction and Inspection Program housed here in the division. With me today is Bill Bischof and Bryan Horgen from our Building Codes branch, as well as Bryan, Kendall, and McLeod from our Fire Prevention branch. Bill was just telling us a little bit about our authority and jurisdiction here in Colorado when it's related to public schools. And it's very interesting to note that when we're talking about public schools, charter schools, institute charter schools, and local district colleges, the Division of Fire Prevention and Control is the code official for both building and fire. And that's not something that we defer to anybody. We remain the code official for both of those. And because of that, we've got two different teams that really focus on those areas of expertise. We've got our fire prevention branch, who JT McLeod is the branch chief. He is our fire code official for all of our public schools. And then we've got our building codes branch, who Bill Bischof is the branch chief for that branch. And he is the building code official here in Colorado for public schools, charter schools, institute charter schools, and local district colleges. It's good to have both of these two branches in our section here with the division, because they do operate so closely together. So now I want to talk a little bit about that integration and partnership. But I think to do that appropriately, we first need to kind of outline what the two different branches are and how you operate. And so maybe JT, we'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the fire prevention branch and how you operate in regards to schools here in Colorado?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I think, first and foremost that we do have Bryan Kendall, who's the unit chief in charge of that. And it's pretty specific as far as kind of how he drives that program, and also works alongside, again, the internal, kind of stakeholders with the building department, but also local jurisdictions, to make sure that we are, that we're meeting the codes that we specifically set, and making sure that from kind of like a cradle to grave aspect of through the construction process, which includes the plan review and any construction inspections, and then on through all of our maintenance inspections as well. And notably that we do have some folks that on local jurisdictions that are certified and qualified through us. But there are times when just because of their own workload, they ask for our assistance, whether that be to take temporary maintenance inspections of those programs, and or possibly the plan review, or just to work through some difficult conversations that they may be having with the school district. And a lot of that comes through just a lot of us going out and meeting with them and educating on the process, the codes that we set forth, and kind of why we do that. And I think those are all important key components to us working with the building department and local jurisdictions to ensure that the schools have a safe environment for the kiddos, so to speak. So, Bryan, did you have anything else you wanted to kind of add on that specifically since you run that unit?
No, not much. Like you touched on, we have several jurisdictions that have qualified inspectors that do this on our behalf, because otherwise our our office would be responsible for over almost 1,900 schools throughout the state. We don't have the manpower for that. We don't have the ability to do that many inspections every year. So thankfully, we do have some wonderful local jurisdictions that are certified. And in those jurisdictions that they do have that, in any jurisdiction for that matter, we are a very big support role that we help bridge that gap between the educational aspect, the school district, and the fire district. With sometimes, like you said, JT, they don't really get along. They don't talk the same language, and we help bridge that gap for them.
You know, that's a really good perspective, Bryan. I appreciate that. I know you're supporting our team that is actually boots on the ground and out helping local jurisdictions with these schools, and anything we can do to help support local jurisdictional harmony between the fire department and the schools. I know it's appreciated. So thanks for all your work and your team's work on that. Before we get into how our teams, interact internally, I do want to hear more about the building codes branch and want our listeners to hear more about it. So maybe Bill, you can kick it off and tell us a little bit more about the building codes branch and how you all operate in regards to the schools.
Certainly. And thank you, Chris. And thank you to Bryan and JT for the support and collaboration that we get. It seems like at least once a week we're communicating back and forth about a school project that has some kind of issue, whether it be fire or building code related, that we have to talk with our cohorts on in the fire prevention branch. And so thank you guys for always being open to it. But talking about the building code branch, we operate similar to any building department. They come in and they apply for a permit, and then after it's in, it goes into our plan review queue. Our plan reviews pick them up in the order that they enter our queue in, and then they go through the plan review process, and then a permit is issued, and then it becomes the responsibility of our inspectors. And because we have 5 inspectors, we divide the state into 5 territories at this time, and each inspector is given a territory. Well, because we only have 5 and there's a number of projects that go on that may need day-to-day inspections, like when they're pouring footers or foundations or even doing framing, they may need day-by-day inspections, and we just don't have the manpower. And so they're obligated to, the school districts are obligated to hire a delegated building inspector who is certified by the division to act on our behalf for the rough inspections throughout schools. Our inspectors will typically do a pre-construction inspection or meeting where they go through the approved set of plans and talk with the contractor. Hopefully the delegated building inspector will be there and any special inspectors, so we can talk about whose responsibility each phase is and who they should be calling for inspections and when we're going to show up. And then the inspectors do periodic progress inspections just to make sure that the project is going well. And then we're given the responsibility and the privilege of doing the final inspection for the building code on these projects. And so it's imperative that the inspectors have some background on the project, because we get some pretty large school projects every now and again. And I keep talking about school projects, and that's our primary duty. The only time we do anything other than public school permitting is if there's a healthcare facility going up in an area of the state that does not have a building department. And then by statute, the authority comes to us and the responsibility to act as the building department for that healthcare facility. And again, that's where there is no building department, or a building department can ask us to act on their behalf for that healthcare facility. And I should probably turn it over to Bryan right now so he can talk a little bit more about what our inspectors go through. Oh, and one thing I did want to talk about too, and I don't know if it's the proper time or not, but we pre-qualify building departments to act on our behalf. We delegate our authority for the permitting, enforcement, the plan review and inspections, and issuing the closeout documents to pre-qualified building departments. And it's very simple to become a pre-qualified building department. They just have to fill out the application. There is no fee for them to become pre-qualified, and we just go through their application, and typically they become pre-qualified once they apply. And then, like Chris was saying earlier, we still maintain that we are the code official, and so any interpretations, any modification requests should come through the division, just because we maintain that we are still the code official, whether it's fire code or building code. And Bryan, please take it over from here.
Okay, well, not sure what to add other than kind of how we handle that. So on the building code side, so John Weir is the unit chief for plan review. So he's pretty much in charge of the intake portion all the way through plan review. And then once we have an approved set of plans and the permit is issued, then it falls into the inspector's realm, or mine. And so from there on, we see it from permit issue to permit close. Now, we do all the, we monitor the building inspections. There's a lot to do with accessibility, all the different codes and everything. But the other thing we do is we also regulate all the other jurisdictions having authority. So along with the building permit, they're going to have a plumbing permit, electrical permit, they're going to have a fire permit, they could have health department, boilers, elevators. There's a lot of jurisdictions that have involvement with it. And so the building inspectors, on top of issuing the COs and checking it for building code compliance, we also make sure that all the other agencies having jurisdiction are approved and that everybody's good. So we do a lot of that. That's very time consuming. As far as inspections goes, Bill hit it right on the head. I mean, we really encourage pre-construction meetings, going through the permits and letting them know that, Department of Regulatory Agencies is going to be doing the inspections for the plumbing and the electrical and who inspects what. So we're kind of the in-between guy for all the other agencies. And so that's a big deal. And then we do progress inspections throughout the project, just to make sure we're up to date and just try to catch any problems as early as possible. Because with schools, I mean, most of them open around the 11th to the 13th of August. So from the end of July, first week of August, they need to pass. So we have heavy involvement there, and we'll do pre-final inspections and give them punch lists and do everything we can to make sure they're successful. And we don't run into issues with holding up school opening the best we can. I mean, we make a big effort to do that. Not sure what else to add other than that,
No, thank you, Bryan. That was great. And I appreciate the whole team jumping in and talking about everything that your teams are doing to help support the safety in construction and ongoing maintenance of schools in Colorado. And I think, Bryan, to your point, you talked a little bit about it. A lot of this work is taking place during a short period of time when school isn't in session. And so our teams are working very hard, very quickly to keep schools on track so that come the end of summer vacation, kids have a place to go back to at the beginning of the school year. And so we've got this truncated time frame where everybody is working hard. And so I think it becomes this this place where we are able to, and we appreciate being able to partner with our local jurisdictions. I think you heard both teams talk about qualified fire departments and pre-qualified building departments, and how it's important that we maintain those relationships and have that that ability to expand our workforce by including our local jurisdictional partners. I want to put this into perspective for our listeners. And this is information from the Department of Education's website. But right now, currently, it's saying that there are 1,877 public schools operating in Colorado. They operate across 179 school districts, serving approximately 870,793 students. That total includes 1,615 traditional public schools and then 262 charter schools. So this program and our team is responsible for all of those, but to even expand it more, it's not just the schools where education is taking place. As Bill highlighted earlier, I think it was Bill, maybe it was Bryan, but regardless, if something is receiving money from the Department of Education, that is something our team is responsible for. So for each of those schools, there could be a school building, there could be a ballpark with facilities, there could be a bus barn, there could be a park where things are getting built that we're responsible for, all related to that school. And so you can see how this multiplies over Colorado and over time. And so that's why it's important that we maintain this ability to delegate and work with our local jurisdictions. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here soon.